This is the Millennials Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Millennials Podcast. This is number 15, and we are doing a topic that some people have been asking us to do for a while, and we finally feel like maybe we can. And there's a lot of stuff going on with this topic right now, racism. And today we have no Joey, unfortunately. We have Ashley.
Yeah.
Kaio.
Hola.
Ralph.
What's up?
Me, Jason, and our guest today is Gabe or Gabriel. Which would you prefer?
Gabe is fine.
Wait, hold on. You're too quiet. Say it again.
Yes, he is.
Gabe is fine.
Wow. The enthusiasm.
Oh, shucks.
Yes, he is.
And let's do our races real quick, I guess, since this is the topic. I'm Jason. I'm white everything, and I have some Spanish in me. Ashley, what are you?
I'm human. That's
Okay.
my answer.
Come on.
She's also white.
No.
Am I?
Go ahead.
Am I?
Let's go over that really quick before we go into everyone else. Is that a lot of the world sees it like that? Like there's white people and black people, and that's it. Like
No,
Indian
I mean,
people or black
Latino
people.
Latino is not really a race. It's more of a social construct.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, it depends on how you want to categorize yourself, and if it's fine if you want to call yourself Latino, but I mean, race depends on what indigenous people you're actually from. So let's say a black person born in, like, you know, who has African ancestry, not technically African American, but his race is black,
African.
is African. Whether he's born in Brazil or wherever his parents decided to have him, because his indigenous people go all the way back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I grew up struggling, not struggling, but
Who are
having
you?
Dealing with it.
having to deal with that because I'm black, but my mom is from Cuba, my dad is from Panama. So anytime a lot of times whenever I say I'm black, I get this, like, people telling me, oh, you're not really black, or you're not black, you're Cuban, right? And I'm like, so are you telling me there's no black people in Cuba? Or and they're like, well, yeah, but, and then they're confused.
I never really thought about it.
They don't understand. Sorry, because we're saying our races. I am like three races actually. My grandfather is black, African descent. My grandmother, he married a white woman in Dominican Republic, like she's white European, and you know, my mom, who's basically Alicia Keys, like if you think about it, all right.
Your mom is Alicia Keys.
Yeah, she's mixed,
Makes my
and
mom Shakira.
and she married a man who has white and Native American descent. So I'm Native American.
So you're a mutt.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. I mean, that's.
I think I wrote an essay like
let's
that.
not use that.
At this point, we're all mutts, like for real.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm actually like I'm only 2 generations away from all these races. So
Yeah. So what level millennial are you?
I am born 91.
Nice.
You.
And Ralph, what are you?
I was also born 91.
We already knew that.
I'm gonna go with the standardized testing way of going about it. I am white Hispanic.
Which is so messed up because anytime I want to put black, there's always a stupid parentheses next to it that says not Hispanic. It's like, why? Why? I just want to check that box so bad.
And by the way, for people who don't understand, there's only actually 4 races in the world. There's the 5th one is other. It's like, yeah, it's Native American. Means that you're from the indigenous people of the Americas. So
that includes Aztec.
Basically, yeah,
Mexicans,
Aztecs, any tribes like the
Cherokee.
Seminole,
Yeah.
Cherokee.
Contrary to popular belief, Native Americans are not just from the United States region.
Yeah.
Now.
Correct, yeah. And there is Asian Pacific Islander. All right, this does not include Russia, even though Russia's in Asia.
Yeah,
Russia's
I've always wondered
considered-
about that. Like,
Russia, if you're considered the white indigenous people of Europe, if you're from Russia. Middle Eastern is actually quite a they're mixed, but it's very controversial. There's some people want to put them under Asians, people just want to call them mixed, but whatever. That's another story for another day. And
no, that's the story for this podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
no, and there's black African. So that means you have African ancestry. And am I missing anything?
You said Native American.
White,
You
yeah,
said
I said them all,
Asian.
yeah.
You said white.
Yeah.
What
You
about
said black.
reptilian?
and other.
What about Illuminati reptilian?
I mean,
Ashley,
Hillary. No,
what are you?
Hey, cut that out. I don't want her. I don't want the NSA coming for me.
I'm human.
Oh, come. This is the race podcast. Come on.
Exactly. That's my stance.
Okay.
So we asked some listeners / friends / people we haven't seen in forever to send us audio clips, and this is one of the ones we received. So we're gonna play it and probably talk about it, and then go into the data that we do have.
Race. What is race? Race is tribalism, separatism, a banal divisionary attribute for the weak-willed and weak-minded, seeking something to place blame on for their own deep-seated shortcomings. Take away what we see before us and express someone's essence and soul through words, music, or text on a screen, and suddenly the concept of race is pretty much pointless. Cut us all open and we bleed the same red blood, let us die and we all decompose into the same black stinking slush. We are animals, albeit intelligent ones, sort of, but we still let something so primitive get in the way of coming together and prospering. We need to stop this separation, the labeling, no white man this or black man that. We are one. In the same way that there are hundreds of different dog breeds, some large, some small, some black, some white, some solid, some spotted, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they look like. We love them for their wagging little tails and for the love they show us, and that's exactly how we should be with each other. Fuck the concept of race, and fuck the people who hopelessly cling to it. Hold yourself accountable. Look at yourself in the mirror.
Okay, this is the problem I have with that. So saying that we're all one race, race is an unnecessary aspect of you. That in itself is racist, I feel, because like that's like saying that your race is such a problem that we have to act like it's the same as mine, or it's all one and the same. Because race is a very important part of yourself. There are some some genetic things that come into play. There are just some societal things that come into play as well. And I understand that we want to have, yes, for the purposes of government, we should all have racial equality necessarily. But to wipe everybody and say, oh, we're all the same race. No, because it implies that there's something wrong with other people's races. Why can't we just respect each other's differences? Why can't you just be different than me and me appreciate those things, and then me learn and learn about you, and then you learn about me, and that's it. We understand, the context of your race, and you understand the context of mine. But it had to wipe it all and say, oh, no, race is not a factor or anything. That ignores a lot of history, because American history doesn't make sense without race relations within whites and blacks and whites and Native Americans. It doesn't make sense. Like, you can't talk about American
but
history
why
like
move it? Okay, I get everything you're saying, but why can't that be a cultural thing? Recognize the differences as cultures, and anything related to race, actual skin color, blood type, whatever you want to call it, for medical reasons. But in a social setting like this, chatting with each other, why on earth do I have to bring up your skin color unless we're talking about colors or something like that? Why do you have to be the black man at the table and I'm the white man at the table and he's the Hispanic man at the table? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Cultures, I understand. There's differences. Mm-hmm. And there should be. It's what keeps the world interesting. But why does that have to be associated with the race of the person?
Okay, I mean, well, race is not just color. Of course, there's a lineage and a history and a dignity or lack thereof, or all that stuff when it comes to racial history, right? I just feel like that's an important part of who people are and where they come from, and
who they are and where they come from is part of their culture, right? And their family, not the color of not their hair type.
But race is not just those things. Race is not just the color and the physical features. That's not just what race is. Race is, your ancestral inheritance, there's all that stuff, right? Native Americans who are proud to be Native American, to just say, oh, we all have just kind of say, oh, forsake all those things and then just be one with whatever's going on now. That doesn't make sense to them, because they're very proud of their culture. They're very proud of where they come from. And they're they like talking about that. They like wearing things that beckon back to their culture.
Yeah, but that's culture,
their beliefs, yeah.
Right? That has nothing to do with their skin color.
You see,
there's a difference between race and skin color, though.
Not necessarily. For some
I see
individuals.
race as,
for example,
as that.
You see race as skin color.
When people say race, I think automatically skin color. When they talk about cultures, I think of all kinds of different things.
Asian people and white people often have the same skin color. Like that doesn't necessarily mean they're the same race. I mean, like it's
Right, but they have
skin color.
distinct features that have to do with being part of that race.
Okay, so not just skin color, also just
Like
race,
physical.
feature.
When I think race, I think physical. When I think culture, I think the music, the type of food, the area they're from, all that kind of stuff.
But race is
You can't separate.
Does
the two.
race embody those things?
well, race is more. We just said that it's more than just skin color, but it's also genetics, and that's why what you were saying, like white people and Asians
Right,
can have the same color,
but
because of
genetics is still, it's physical, it's science. It's not anything that is ungraspable. That's all in our head. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think anybody should be treated differently because of what they look like, their physical features necessarily.
Exactly.
Something that everybody should take pride in, wherever they come from. They should take pride in it, and
Yes,
it's just
but
and
to the
it's an
extent
aspect
of
of
not
you.
praising one group over another. See, like from that clip, I can perceive what you understood from it, but I didn't take that sentiment from that clip. For me, it was a matter of the fact of being proud of your heritage, where you've come from, acknowledging that we are all uniquely different, but neither one group praising or stating that one is greater than the other, because in the deep root of it all, we're all mankind. That's what I took from it. And that's why I said that human comment in the beginning, which might have sounded obnoxious to you guys, but that's how I see it. Like I can be proud that I'm Latina, or I can be proud that I'm a white American, but deep down in my soul, I am of the human race, and we all are. And that's how, I don't know, that's what I understood from that clip.
Okay, but the one thing he also said is like, don't use race for an excuse for your shortcomings and things like that. And I have a problem with that, because like that also that also opens up a whole thing.
Yeah,
into
I did
who's
have a
been
problem with that as well.
disenfranchised and who has not, who has benefited from history, who has not, who tells us the history and who has not. Because if you
I agree with that.
Yeah, if you're a dark skinned person, going into the educational system, you're taught basically that everybody who ever accomplished anything, anybody who contributed to society was white.
Oh wait, we do get that month though. We get a month.
Yeah, we do get a month. Yeah, but look, even
Which Morgan Freeman says you shouldn't have.
yeah, look, and I mean, I whatever. That's Morgan Freeman. I could see both cases why to have it, why
Respect
not.
to God.
But all right, but look at it this way. Like we're taught that like if you're black, you're taught until we got the civil rights. Until we get to and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, until we
The abolitionists
and all those things, we haven't contributed to society in any positive way, even though some of the most,
Which is total malarkey.
yeah, exactly, some of the greatest architectural contributions prior to the 19th century have come from Africa, like the pyramids, like the astronomy, and the astrology that was going on there, the hotbed of how the ancient Greeks would actually go to Egypt to study certain things. Then Africa is the most resource-rich continent in the world.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's exploited by nations that colonize it and have colonized it. Looking back at all those things, like, we're not really taught about how one of the richest men in the history of the world was an African king, King Mansa Musa, who gave away so much gold on a pilgrimage to Egypt that it took 10 years for gold to go back to the value it used to have. So like all those things, right? And also we're taught people like Malcolm X are like troubled, controversial people, and Christopher Columbus is completely worthy of his own holiday.
Oh, no, not at all.
Christopher Columbus's people, his henchmen, all that stuff, there are diaries in which they admit to raping and enslaving people. This is history. This is documented. This happened 400 years ago. Somebody picked up a book and found this out between now and here, but we're still celebrating him as this big, and there's a guy who got lost, showed up to the wrong place, called it the wrong thing,
and decided I'm just gonna rape and take over everything.
Mass genocide.
Yes.
I think that's going to go away.
That's starting to change. There's more awareness that's happening now in the educational system with individuals so-called praising that holiday, and soon that'll just get
I think
totally
praising that
eradicated.
holiday is part of America's dying need for patriotism. I think.
Well, that's
It's like, celebrate us, even though it was really bad. Don't worry about that part.
That's the
It
main
gets us
problem,
excited
though.
about being here now.
It's also kind of interesting because he wasn't us when he found us.
Yeah, exactly.
When he
But
found
anyways,
us.
yeah. Not a
Yeah.
Columbus podcast.
Sorry, one thing that I thought was pretty cool about the Columbus Day thing, it's relevant. I mean, it is about racism and stuff, but like this year, I didn't even realize it was Columbus Day. Like it just passed recently.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. And normally I know because I'm a teacher and we've done stuff for it before. But now that, when I was a teacher's assistant, now that I am a teacher, I'm like, hell no, I'm not celebrating that in my class.
I would use it to teach what really happened.
Yeah,
I
well,
guess,
also
something.
the nature of the class that I have, it's way above. It'd be way too abstract to explain. But anyway,
And probably too explicit.
yeah. But when I looked on Facebook, I saw that people were posting, what is it, Indigenous
People's Day.
Peoples Day. I saw that more than I saw anything about Columbus.
Yeah, that's what makes me think it's going to change. Like,
And I
I don't
think that's
support it.
awesome.
And some
And I
Rose,
don't know
who
who
was
did
on this
it.
podcast, didn't either.
Yeah, I don't know who made that a thing, but I'll say millennials did it. Why not?
If it had a hashtag, maybe. Or it was like an older person trying to be relevant in social media, trying to say something.
Do you guys know who Questlove is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the drummer from
Musician?
The Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a documentary that I recently saw, he said the worst crime that can ever be committed by mankind is ignorance. Now, going back to what you were saying, Gabe, I think it's a dual relationship when it comes to, I don't want to say the issue, but the subject of race or racism. You have to acknowledge history. In order to understand what's happening now, you need to know where you came from, what occurred then, and in actuality, how we've grown so minuscule, it's actually repeating itself. And we as humans continue to fail because we are proud. African Americans built this nation, and that needs to get acknowledged, not for a month, not for a day, for one single holiday, but as a nation in its whole. With that acknowledgement of where African Americans came from, what they've done, what's happening now with the struggle of keeping people in prison or keeping people in the ghettos or keeping people down in the minority group and not letting them rise to where their potential is. That's one factor. Another factor is realizing that you as a human, no matter what your race is, have potential greater than your environment. So I think in the sense, it's a dual relationship. You have to know where you're coming from, but also know that who the F cares about my race? This is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to push. And I think that a lot of activists in the past and abolitionists and people now in this day see it as so. So stop.
One concept of equality that kind of made things different for me. People thought that when Jackie Robinson got into baseball, that was the equality or that was a certain way. But look, the thing Chris Rock said, he's like you started seeing equality in baseball and maybe in the 80s when you started seeing bad black players. Right, because the thing is that if we're trying to get into Harvard and Ashley needs a Ashley can get in with a 3.2, but I got to get in with a 4.3.
Yeah, it's unfair.
That's not equality, right?
not.
So I have to be significantly better than the average just to play amongst the average. Therefore, it is not equality, right? That's how it's been for a lot of black people. And so people say, you made it out. There's black people who made it out of the hood. You can do it too. You need to stop complaining and stuff. But the thing is that people have a lot of things against them because of segregation to this day, because segregation is only about 60 some years away from when segregation ended. So that's only about a couple generations, like your grandparents. Some of our parents might have lived
my
through that.
mom.
Yeah,
that's my mom.
Yeah. If we look at that, we looked at the fact that the reason that black people, live in impoverished neighborhoods, live amongst other black people.
Equality is abolishing those environments. Take that away. There should be no ghettos. There should be no majority class. Should be no minority class. There should be none of that. We should all be on the same playing field. Do I think that's going to happen? Maybe in heaven.
I'm sorry, I'm not,
I sound like a communist?
I'm not saying you are a communist. I'm just saying like that sounds like a communist. But and I'm whatever.
Okay, the Black Panther movement. They did a lot of, if you want to call it socialistic reforms, but they were the first and only organization to actually do social reforms in the ghettos. They invented the free breakfast program that we now have in the educational system, which was in the beginning when they started doing that in the ghettos, that was looked down upon by the U.S. government. The FBI was on their back. They didn't want that. They didn't want social reform where man was helping man despite race or color or anything like that. Where was I going with that?
Didn't they do that by acknowledging the differences in race?
The thing is that
in this documentary that I just saw, it's called the Black Power Mixtape on Netflix. These Swedish filmmakers
I got Huey
in the
Newton.
1960s and the 1970s, they go around the US and they're filming everything that's happening from Kennedy's death all the way to Martin Luther King's death to Stokely Stockley Carmichael to everything that's happening, Malcolm X. And in that, these Swedish filmmakers, they interview this Black Panther member, and she states that the power structure that made racism the main problem is actually what they're not trying to deal with. What they should be dealing with is capitalism. Basically stating that racism has become the topic of struggle or what we're supposed to overcome, but in actuality, what the problem is capitalism, right?
You don't think it's people's hearts?
That's exactly what the problem is. Everything is what's the most money that we can get? Who can we take advantage of? And in this nation, it's
So
the
greed
African American
is-
group. Yes, exactly. Greed, pride.
Well, if you look at it, there's 548 billionaires in the U.S., right? 3 of them are black.
Right.
3 of them are black, right? So, no, that is correct. 3 of them are black. There used to be a 4th one, but he got divorced.
He fact checked in his brain. Nope.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
No. I wasn't doubting that it was true. You're just like, right? Like as if I'm going to know that off the top of my head.
that's common knowledge.
Okay.
We got to have a little bit of laughter in this one.
Okay,
We're
no,
going to
that's
get in
fine.
tits.
That's fine. But, all right. So, but what does that tell you? That tells you that if only 3 of them are black, that's less than 1%. It's roughly a little bit more than 0.5%. So, what that tells you that there's no black ownership in this country, right? Even though black people are roughly like 10-15% of the population. I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, we're coming off of all of that craziness, though, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean the thing is that the corporations did benefit. Like the white elite always benefited from racism and systemic racism, and
In America, yeah,
in
but in
America,
other
yes.
parts of the world, whoever they're oppressing is the people. I want to say now before we keep going, we're talking about. This is not to you. This is to the listeners. We're talking about racism in America. Like we can talk about some world stuff, whatever, but we don't live in other parts of the world and we don't know enough about it. So that's why we're bringing up black and white a lot, because that's a huge part of our history. So anyways.
Yeah, I mean it was mainly about race relations in America. But what does that teach us though? If the people who own and run these corporations, right, are white billionaires, there's 548 of them, only 3 of them are black, right? Is Oprah, there is Michael Jordan, and there's
Michael Jordan's a billionaire?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and he had to be the best basketball player ever, make a few smart decisions, get with a humongous clothing manufacturing conglomerate in Nike. And then he was allowed to be a billionaire. While some people just inherited, some people's dad was a billionaire, and then they became a billionaire.
Yeah.
Or
Right, that's what I mean. We're coming
Yeah.
off the heels of finally there's a little bit more equality than there was, and
Exactly.
all that other stuff took hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so it's going to take time to catch up for a young black man to inherit billions from his father. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But also, if you look at it, there's 120 roughly 120 sports franchises in the 4 major sports: in NBA basketball, NFL football, MLB baseball, and NHL hockey. Right? There's roughly 120 franchises. That means 120 owners. One of them is black. Right? And then NBA and NFL are over 70% black, but there's no ownership, even in a field in which they dominate. There's some people that look at race and act like it's such a long time ago. It has no bearing today, or just shut up and work hard and you'll be okay. And like the thing is that like they're racist. First of all, racism, the effects of
It's not
racism
that long ago.
are not that long ago. They're still happening today.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that
It's not long ago at all. It still is. It's just
Yeah.
less than it was.
yes. And the thing is that the liberties that America talks about did not apply for black people up until those roughly 60 years ago, in which when it began to be enforced by the government in one way, even though in other ways the government did conspire to keep black and brown
They found
people
a
down.
loophole. Exactly.
Yes. With 13th Amendment, they talk about how
Let's go into that.
yeah. Actually, can we go into Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah.
I was gonna bring him up.
Wait,
when he started talking about sports, I was like, "Can we please bring up Colin Kaepernick?"
I wanted to save him
I know
for when we
nothing
do a
about
sports podcast, but I mean, that's relevant to this.
Of
so-
course.
we have to do.
Yeah.
Who's Colin Kaepernick?
So Colin Kaepernick, yeah, he's the dude that took a knee.
He is refusing to stand for the national anthem. So he feels that the U.S. Begins to live out and actually apply the liberties and freedoms it speaks of, and it stops oppressing black and brown people. Well, he's caught a lot of flack for that. He's like, at first he was just sitting it out completely. Then he started kneeling out of respect for the veterans, according to him. And he's getting a lot of flack for it. A lot of people are saying that he's anti-police. A lot of people are saying he's anti-military. He's disrespecting our flag. He's unpatriotic. He should leave the country, even though because he's rich and black in America and all that stuff. So go ahead, Kyle.
I
think you
can't
want to say
stand
something?
that. that stands on because he's rich, that he can't stand up for people that aren't as fortunate as him, because he doesn't understand. That's insinuating that you can only take a stance for something if you're a part of that, and that's not true. Like that's like saying you can't support Black Lives Matter unless you're black. And
Exactly.
That's
The dumb thing about
Ridiculous.
that is that if Colin Kaepernick was some broke black dude in the hood, whose life is falling apart, living off welfare or something like, or some crazy stupid stereotype, and he was complaining about the injustice in America, they would just say, "Yo, shut up and get a job and stop being lazy."
Yeah, you're nobody.
Just
Do something.
just work harder, and then
Yeah,
then
you wouldn't even have a voice.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When
yeah.
someone that does have a voice does it, this is what happens.
Yeah, so it's like
Everyone
a catch-22.
explodes.
Yep.
And what's crazy to me is that people have such a hard time with him just kneeling, and then someone like Muhammad Ali is praised. So like you bring up Muhammad Ali in any conversation, and there's nothing but positive things to say about Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was a savage. Like if you listen to interviews on Muhammad Ali, like he would straight up say things like he would say like white devils, and he'd say like some crazy stuff.
Muhammad Ali dodged the draft, did 6 months in prison or more possibly, but he did some time in prison for not going to Vietnam. And he said, "I don't have a quarrel with the Vietnamese." All right, he's like, and he called him Chinaman, which is of course a slur nowadays.
Yeah.
But
His issue was with
it was with
at home.
He said, "White people in my country are the ones oppressing me. I have no quarrel with the Vietnamese." And it's funny, he draft dodged, and he was not at all universally loved at his time. Neither was MLK. MLK and Muhammad Ali were both criminals and highly controversial, polarizing public figures.
He was killed.
Yeah, exactly. And so these nowadays they're highly praised and respected and all that stuff now, but back then they were like, some woman walked up and stabbed Martin Luther King in the back. Who, like, a white woman who somehow was so threatened by him and his movement that she walked up and stabbed him and stabbed him. What kind of crazy stuff? That wouldn't even happen nowadays. Like you could say Kaepernick is probably more loved now than MLK was at the time. And now we praise MLK like he's such,
That's
he's such a
because
great thing.
people fear the power of actions and people fear the power of words. Not necessarily actions that have to be obnoxiously loud or destructive or anything like that, but by him simply kneeling or words spoken by MLK, that resounds for years on end. I keep bringing up this documentary, but you need to watch this. It's the Black Power Mixtape, and there's commentary by, am I pronouncing it right? Talib Kweli.
Yeah, Talib Kweli.
Questlove, Sonia Sanchez, who's a poet, Harry Belafonte. Anyways, Talib shares a story on how he was, back in 2010, he was working on, what are you guys laughing at me?
It's Talib. It's
Talib.
okay. There you go.
Sorry.
Malarkey.
Talib. He was working on research for new music that he was going to create, and he was listening to some speeches on YouTube by Stockley Carmichael, which was a huge activist back in the 60s. And if you don't know who he was, he acknowledged MLK for everything that he did, but he was not passive like MLK Jr. He was more of an activist, more aggressive in his words, even though he was a very soft-spoken man. Anyways, Talib.
You could just say Talib Kweli.
TK. TK was researching this, right? And so he was researching this, and then he went to the airport. This is true. He shares this in the documentary. He went to the airport, and he was stopped by a swarm, like a herd of FBI agents, and they took him away, and they started interrogating him, asking him, "What are you doing?" This is 40 years later from when Stockley was alive and was renowned in America and doing everything that he was doing. 40 years later, that TK was pulled away and interrogated on, why are you listening to this man's speech? What are you going to do with this? Are you going to use this for your music? All of this stuff. So when you think about it, words have way more of an effect, and quiet actions have way more of an effect than you might realize, especially when it gets heard by people who are too proud or too greedy to acknowledge that we're all equal.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just to go back a little bit to the Kaepernick thing. And that is very weird that just somebody would get stopped and researched by the FBI just because of the content he was just consuming himself for his personal entertainment or research. That's odd. But the thing is that the thing that Colin Kaepernick is doing is that he's making people uncomfortable, and he's making people face the realities. Mainly white people face the reality of the America that they've been sold to is a lie, is inaccurate at best. Okay, and yes, America is the greatest nation ever. Has accomplished some of the best things ever, but in my opinion, like when it comes to just how great of a nation America is, the way I look at it is that America has a D and the rest of the world has an F. Honestly, because as great as this nation is, there has never been a time in which the justice system has not been used again to hurt blacks and to keep the black community down. There's so many systemic policies and just there's almost legislature, so much just institutional racism that you have. Yes, deep rooted that you've had to deal with for generations and generations and generations. You know, and the thing is that for a lot of white American-born people, they've been told that America is the greatest country, so much liberty, so much freedom. What are you talking about? What do you mean there's inequality? What do you mean there's all this stuff? If you don't like it here, you should leave. Well, if you
we're all one race.
Yeah, all that stupid stuff, and all lives matter stuff too, which is also another problem I feel, because I feel like it's being insensitive to people saying that, hey, Black Lives Matter in the sense because Black Lives Matter are under attack. Black lives are under attack, and and our lives have value. And then people start making, why are you trying to make it exclusive? Why are you trying to talk about yourself?
When people say Black Lives Matter, what happens is a lot of people see that as we're all equal, and you're lifting one up above the other.
Yeah.
Really, we're all equal, and that one's lower, and we're trying to bring it up to where everyone else is.
Exactly.
Some people insert a only before, and I don't know why, like where that comes from.
The
or
media.
That.
Wait, before what?
Before Black Lives Matter.
So only, but just
only Black Lives Matter.
Some people,
that's what they hear. Only Black Lives Matter.
Oh yeah.
Some people feel that people are implying that, even though that's a straw man fallacy, because there's no prominent black member that supports Black Lives Matter that has encouraged violence against police.
Of course, every movement always has some kind of crazy idiot people.
But the worst was Chris Brown saying "F the police," but that's just Chris Brown in a moment. He just said, that doesn't necessarily mean he's inciting violence against the police. But whatever. That's literally one example.
The Black Lives Matter movement is not only a movement for Black lives; it's a movement for all lives. That's how I see it.
Correct. And the thing is that actually, black people in the civil rights movement took the butt whooping for a lot of other minorities. And a lot of other minorities gained rights and gained benefits because of legislation that black people forced into policy. By the way, the civil rights movement would not have been very strong without the contribution of many great and brave white men and women who did cause a great deal of help, because once again, white people are the majority. You can't really influence legislature without their help. So that does need to be stated in history. Black people were the ones that were on the front lines of this battle, but Asians, Latinos, just a lot of even Middle Eastern people gained the benefits of these amendments and policies. The fact that Ashley, you're Latino, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And human.
Latina.
Latina. Sorry, you're Latina.
That hurt.
You're a human. You're a human Latina.
You could go back and listen to episode 1 if you really wanted to find out all the stuff she is. But anyway.
Okay. The reason that is against the law, for your employer to discriminate against you because of racism was mainly due to the to the sacrifices of black people in that time, of course. And of course, not saying that Ashley, I'm not debating Ashley anyway or anything like that. I'm just using Ashley as an example because Ashley happens to be light skinned, sorry.
You should see when she goes to the beach though.
Lobster. What does she become? Is she get red or tan?
Tan.
Oh, okay.
Real tan.
Okay. Does your credit score go down?
No. Why did you? I wasn't.
Wait, I could throw another one. No, because she's
hilarious.
married to me.
All right.
I'm uncomfortable with all of this.
No, you're not.
Get comfortable.
He's smiling so big.
About to get real.
That's all I have to say about that.
Wow.
Okay, good.
So, in regard to what's occurring now with the Black Lives Matter movement and the All Lives Matter movement, what do you guys have to say towards the different perspectives, what's happening in society, and if in actuality it's any different from what we've dealt with in the past?
Well, first of all Lives Matter isn't a movement. Is it?
It's a stance.
It's a
It's a
It's a response to a movement.
It's a bunch of just confused people getting together.
Yeah. All Lives Matter is not. It's a movement for what?
It's
not a movement.
basically a remedial math course. And that's it. They just confuse people in a room
But
together.
you know what I mean.
I think
I know
there are
what you
people.
mean. I'm
There are
just
people
saying.
who lack empathy and lack the ability to see other people's perspectives.
That's what I don't get. Like, if I see someone
Stay woke.
who is if I see someone who's in pain, my response isn't to just say your pain isn't valid. At least I don't think it should be. My response shouldn't be that your pain isn't valid. I should have empathy. And I don't know why, but with Black Lives Matter, with this movement, when you respond with all lives matter, there's like zero empathy. And even acknowledging that there's a problem, or acknowledging that this conversation that is finally brought up.
Part of the problem is the news. Depending on what type of news channel you watch, these people who are at home and a different race than black are thinking, okay, like I said before, we're all on an equal playing field and you're raising yourself up. First of all, that's how they're seeing it. So they're saying these people think they're better than me, one. Two, they're seeing what they see on the news, depending on what news channel you watch, is the Black Lives Matter movement destroying things and all this kind of stuff. So they associate, okay, they think they're better than us.
And they're looting and
And they're anti-police
stealing,
and they're killing
and
cops.
they're anti-police and they're killing cops, and that's not the heart of the matter. And that's the problem. And I said it before, with every movement, no matter what it's about, even if it's about something bad, there's even crazier lunatics in it that are going too far, that don't understand the point of the movement that they're even in. They're just there to
Wreak havoc.
feel a part of something.
One thing I want to make clear, though, for people, I'm very glad you brought up the news, is the thing is that not every angry black person who yells out Black Lives Matter is part of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Exactly.
Or is even a serious supporter of the movement. And for those,
just like religion.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who say that that Black Lives Matter, they need to denounce these violence against police, and that they have. Nobody in the no real member of the Black Lives Matter Foundation. There's chapters in Miami. I'm sorry, I don't think there's one in Miami, but there's chapters all over the U.S. and they none of them have ever push toward violence against police. That's not anything at all. Even honestly, even implied. That's just about the people's bias, cognitive biases, getting in the way of the truth. And it's very true that what you're saying about depending on the news network. The thing is that certain news channels, honestly, are just being irresponsible and not portraying the truth. They're just feeding into a narrative that will generate listeners and empathize with a certain demographic of people who've been taught certain things for a long period of time. And that's why we need to educate the racism out of people, the racial bias out of people, because honestly, I believe everybody's racist. I made some pretty racist comments throughout my lifetime, just about anybody else who's uneducated about and unempathetic to people who aren't like you. So, but over time, when I understood the gravity of what I was saying through education, through just better information, then I understood, what it really was to appreciate people and their differences but just see them as equals and understand the plights of different peoples and not put anybody in a box or not generalize people negatively in any way just because of where they're from or things like that. But that has to be done through education.
Amen.
Yeah.
I minored in cultural studies, so I took a lot of classes about people of the world, learning about every kind of culture you can think of and every kind of religion you can think of. And that really helped me. It opened up my mind in a way that I could never even imagine it doing. It taught me things about myself, things that have been ingrained in me that I didn't even realize were there. So I think that one of the most important things we can do is educate our kids, not just in college, but all the way back to preschool. Just go back to preschool and learn to celebrate people's differences, to celebrate the similarities in us, but also to celebrate the different cultures, and not just, they don't do it like us, so let's be hateful against them. No, they have a reason for celebrating their heritage. They have a reason for celebrating their culture, and let's learn more about them instead of ignoring it and acting like it's not there. So I think that would be one way of changing racism in America, just learning to celebrate people and not wanting them to conform to be a certain kind of person.
Gabe, back to something you said about saying racist things or subtly racist things when you were younger, right? Where do you think you picked those things up? Because one of our listeners wrote on our Instagram They wanted to know if we think racism is still taught subtly in the home. Do you think that's maybe something you picked up from your home, or something you picked up from the media, or something you picked up from kids at school?
That's a very, very good question. This is the thing. Just about everybody in their house has been taught, especially if you're Hispanic, that just by you being from whatever country you're from, you're better than other people, than a certain other country.
Pride.
Especially Hispanics.
Yeah, especially Hispanics. Yeah, like I'm Dominican.
So proud.
Yeah.
I'm talking about you. I'm talking about Dominicans. That
Yeah.
culture in general is like super, super, super proud.
Yeah, Dominicans, they do like it's like a common theme. A lot of them believe that, and I'm Dominican. I'm from the Dominican Republic. My parents are from there. A lot of them believe that just because they're born in a different part of the island, even though they may have some similar features or similar ancestry than Haitians, they are superior to Haitians, right? And sometimes like how the media would perceive black. A lot of Dominicans don't even consider themselves black, like, even no matter how much like
Yeah,
no matter
heard
what
that.
features, yeah, like Brazil has the highest concentration of African descendant people. Sorry, the second highest of any country.
What's
Any
the first?
country. The first
Africa.
country is the first country is
What?
somewhere in Africa.
People think that though.
Yeah.
It's funny, but there's so many people that think Africa is a country.
But if you look
And you can speak African. What is that?
But if you look at a brochure in Brazil, a brochure about a trip to Brazil, something like that, you're not going to see a lot of African representation there. High concentration of people of African descent live there. But this is the thing. It's something. Yes, I was taught like by some people that I was better than a certain nationality and a certain peoples just because of where I was from.
In the home,
Yes, and also in the media and how it portrayed certain black. I didn't even know I was black honestly until I was like a teenager. Honestly, my parents never. Whatever. Like, they never had the black talk with me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. My grandfather is black, but he's clearly black ancestry, black features. But I thought of him as Latino. I didn't think of him as black, even though Latino is not a race. It is just a social construct, really. And if you think about it, because like you're only Latino because Spain colonized some countries on the Americas, and you and your ancestors migrated here. And then just because that country spoke Spanish, you became Latino. But has nothing to do with your race because it all depends on the indigenous people that you came from.
yeah. I don't want to go back into it,
Yeah.
but that's part of what my point was. Like, you didn't even know you were black until someone told you were black. But anyways, go ahead.
A lot of people are taught in their house. And also, because how the media portrays a lot of black people, I would always think, oh, I'm not like them. I'm not like that. Some people might look at black people like they're more, just because there are black guys walking toward me, and he's not dressed in a suit or not dressed extra nice, that he more likely to commit a crime against me. And yeah, I think that's something that needs to be educated out of us. I think that's something that, like, when I learned about real equality was when I went out and did research and understood that there is nothing inside a black person, inside an Asian person, inside of any people that make them do bad things when more likely than any other race. It just comes down to opportunities. If people lack opportunities, lack education, they're more likely to get into crime no matter where they're from.
For sure.
You look at the most crime-ridden places in any country. They're usually the poorest parts of the country, and it's a lack of opportunity more that causes crime. If we really have a problem with crime, locking people up and removing father figures from the household, removing leaving kids with single parents or no parents, or getting people into jail for 20, 30 years over nonviolent offenses, completely ruining their lives, that's not going to help crime. It's not. So the war on crime really should be a reallocation of resources in which we really give
Rehabilitate mankind.
Exactly. We give people opportunities. We rehabilitate like what you said earlier, rehabilitate these neighborhoods that have these socioeconomical issues.
Which is actually happening. It's happening it's beginning to happen now.
In what way?
Well, Overtown, for example, in Miami, it's a city in Miami. It's it was originally called Colored Town. And now it's known as
Gabe didn't know that.
You didn't know about that?
I didn't know that. I work by there too.
It's considered a lot of people just refer to it as like the ghetto or whatever. But now it's known as Historic City of Overtown is what it's called now. And there's a lot of like reconstruction happening there. There's a lot of transformation happening there. I mean, not at a super fast rate, but it's happening. Not only that, but I don't know too much about this, but I hear about Harlem and Brooklyn, like in New York.
Mm-hmm.
The same things happening over there. A lot of just like education reform, just movements are happening to kind of clean up the images of those cities.
Yeah. That's a very important key, because the things that in this, I think that black people are starting to really get woke in a way, and just to not to just use a cliche, but really starting to understand that we have to take an active role in our own rescue. Because if you look at it really, and it's not to criticize the black community anyway, but black people get 100 new millionaires every year through the NFL and NBA draft, right? And the things that when you look at how, like, these rappers and like, okay, because black people, the field that dominate in is entertainment and sports, right? But if you look at how they live, a lot of them live lavish lifestyles, right? Whether they spend money in a way that can be frivolously, when they could be investing in their own communities in a better way. Not that they don't, but that money could go so much further if you were to go back to your community and sponsor kids to go to college, to do scholarships, or open up recreation centers. And a lot of them do, but it feels like they should allocate a little bit more resources to that. And everybody should have that responsibility to go back and enrich the communities in which they came from. The way I see it, I look at LeBron like Kaepernick, but like I think he's more of like a socio-economical financial protest, in my opinion, because he's giving jobs to black people. He's getting so many kids into college. He's enriching his neighborhood. And I think we need more of that as well.
Can we talk about Muslims in America and the discrimination towards them?
Yeah, there's a lot of
Would you
that.
guys
So
be
sure.
okay with doing that? Because I
I
kind of feel
will be
like
honest
if we,
and say I don't know a lot about it, so you're gonna have
that's
to go
fine.
off.
They could just do like an opinionated little small segment, but I think to have an episode where it's just white and black and not talk about other racist tendencies in this nation is kind of unfair. Not to say that we can talk about every single race and the discrimination that's happened towards certain groups of people, but this is a really huge one, because I feel like this entity of people are grouped together like so many other groupings that happen because of the lack of wisdom or education and due to ignorance. But just like when you say, okay, you're from the ghetto, okay, you're uneducated, or you're not going to strive for anything, or okay, you're a criminal, like you were saying, Gabe. If you see a black man walking towards you with like not so great clothes, you're going to think, okay, I'm going to get attacked or something's going to happen. That's happening now, not just for blacks, even though that's been occurring since the beginning of our nation. But right now, what I find really shocking and daunting is the blunt racist attitudes towards Muslims in this nation, not only by people in your day-to-day environment, but by political figures. Like, we have people that are striving for opportunistic positions in our government that are blatantly saying we need to keep this group of people out. We need to do this by this group of people, or this group of people tends to do this.
Don't even say his name. He doesn't even deserve
And
his
I
name to be
just
said.
find that so shocking and terrible to witness such an act. It's just pure ignorance. And I just want to know if you guys want to like talk
Yeah, for
about
sure.
that matter.
And it's crazy because that political figure is targeting specific races. He's going, or I know Muslim isn't a race, but he's targeting specific
Entities.
groups of people and just going like after them. And yeah, Muslims are definitely
More than
huge part of
anything,
it.
because those types of people know the people who will vote for them, and that's who they're against, so they're against them too, so that they can get their vote.
So he's picking those specific ones because he knows that he'll get the vote from
This is the thing. That guy, let's call him DT. He's the most racially just uninformed political figure I've ever seen.
Okay, I thought if you were gonna say person, I was like, no.
Yeah, of course, not person, but like someone who within reaching distance of the highest office in the land. I've never seen any presidential candidate be that racially misinformed.
Yeah, publicly.
Yes, exactly. Because he look.
Hey,
so,
I mean, HC does it too, just not so explicitly.
yeah, I mean, she's really bad, but at least she's more. At least she's
I didn't say
apologized.
gender.
Yeah, at least she's. I'm sorry. At least she's
At least that
apologized.
person.
Yeah, but your apologies mean nothing when your actions say otherwise.
Correct. But the thing is that she is at least educated enough in the sense of
That's
at
even
least
worse.
been
Someone
told.
who's educated and
Are
still does
you
it wrong.
because you're a fact man. Are you aware of what her husband did when he was president?
Yes.
Do you know what he enacted?
Yes.
What did he do?
Yes, I think he ratcheted up the war
Maximum
on drugs.
sentencing.
I'm sorry, minimum sentence. Yeah, maximum minimums. Maximum minimums.
Mandatory minimums.
There, that's what I meant. Mandatory minimums.
Stop and frisk and all that.
Exactly. There was this woman, I can't recall
But that was her
name.
husband, not her.
Exactly. But she stood by him up until now. Up until recently when she stated that, oh, okay, yes, I recognize that may have not been the best decision, or I apologize for that matter. But when you stand behind something for 20 plus years and that's your stance and you keep flip-flopping.
Correct. I understand that is a problem, but what the other guy is talking about is about completely disregarding the Constitution and
Oh yeah, they're both idiots.
Yeah, and stopping the inflow of Muslims into the United States. Okay, look, to our listeners, you should never allow the government to supersede the Constitution for your own personal protection and to alleviate your fear. Because then, at that point, you give the government so much power that the Constitution can no longer apply to you.
Exactly.
When all they have to do is deem you a threat to the nation, and then the Constitution no longer applies to you. That's why I have a problem with Guantanamo Bay. The U.S. government can say, actually, is a threat to the U.S. government. We're going to say, it's a terrorist. We're going to send it to Guantanamo. You have no trial. You have no due process. You have no rights. And at that point, you can stay there for the rest of your life, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And that is unconstitutional. But at that point, because you've allowed these laws, you allow Guantanamo to be in place, at that point, you've opened up the door where the government can do that to you. So this whole situation where people are okay with the government superseding the Constitution,
and setting a precedent.
yeah, that's a very dangerous precedent.
It is, but I don't want to make this a government podcast, but in case you or the listeners don't already know, it doesn't matter what the law is. The government does whatever it wants anyways. It doesn't need to be in the Constitution. But
or even if it is in the Constitution.
when they
they'll
need
find a
someone
loophole.
gone, you're gone. It doesn't matter if there's a law about it. But besides that,
Yeah, but you can't make it easy for them. That's my thing about it.
if it's a minor issue. Yeah, if you're causing serious problems, you're just gone. I mean,
if you have information about
if
emails,
you have information about,
you're dead.
Ooh, exactly.
I see what
that
Gabe is
person didn't
saying,
have
though.
anything. They just no. I see what he's saying, but don't we already have the beginning stages of that with some things that Obama and Bush have
Yep.
signed, such as the Patriot Act?
I understand that, but just this hateful rhetoric that just undermines the Constitution. And the thing is that, all right, the Patriot Act has its own issues. But the thing is that just the fact that this is that it is so popular amongst this person's supporters, and that legislature that discriminates people based on religion, that's a very dangerous precedent. And the Patriot Act has its issues, but just I have a problem with the fact that this is actually just being indoctrinated into a group of Americans just for personal gain.
It is, but you were talking about giving up rights for protection to alleviate a fear.
No. I'm talking about superseding the Constitution for protection.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that at that point, there are some laws that can supersede certain things, but I'm talking about like your livelihood can be taken away based on these things. Mm-hmm. If you start allowing people to supersede the Constitution and just literally letting the government arbitrarily decide who gets freedom and who doesn't based on their threat level of terrorism.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't have to be terrorism. We've already done that, right? Slavery.
Mm-hmm. All that stuff.
Stay woke.
Yeah. Like if you think about it, as bad as these extremist Muslims have been to us, with some of these mass shootings or these suicide bombings, things like that, 9/11, of course, depending on what you believe. But
Go listen to episode 10.
Go listen to insert episode number here.
it's just too dangerous of a precedent for if you allow the government to completely remove your freedom and your livelihood arbitrarily based on their idea that the government can just simply make you a terror threat and then completely just to throw away all your liberties and rights as an American. And also for someone to say that they cannot come into this country just because of their religion. If you're allowed to do that, then what else can you discriminate because of religion? This whole country is built on these liberties.
I was gonna say we came over here to get away from religious
For religious
Exactly.
Well, I don't mean we, but
Okay, what do you guys have to say about the Native American race and what's occurred in the sense of discrimination towards them and our nation? Like, we were built on the genocide of the Native Americans. And yet we literally praise our nation as the best country in the whole entire world. We are free. actually you're not free if you actually open up your eyes and are aware of everything that is just systematically set up.
I think it's absolutely insane the fact that when I was growing up, when I was in school, the way history is portrayed as far as like with Native Americans is how far completely it's like Santa Claus level of absurdity, the way that it's described as like Thanksgiving, that whole like, hey, we give you maize and you give us and whatever.
Colonial tyranny.
Diseases.
And we just sit together and we have turkey and we're besties. Yeah, you can have our land. Sure, why not?
Cornucopia.
I love casinos. Like, that's not
Whoa.
at all. I'm speaking
know.
from the
I know.
Yeah, okay. So that's not at all how it happened. And
I don't understand how people came from somewhere else because they were being quote unquote oppressed.
to oppress
Came over
other people.
here and oppressed other people. I'm
It's-
just like if I came from somewhere completely strange and there was already people there. Granted, I don't know how it feels to live in that time. It could have been a very crazy, insane thing. Maybe the Indians were hostile. I don't know. But you have guns, the Native Americans. But you
I
have
just
guns.
cringed when he said
You have guns and they don't have guns, and you've been oppressed, and a very, very thick culture of eye for an eye. It was these people did it to us. Now we have the ability to do it to these people. I think that's part of what may have been there. But if I went to somewhere and it was already taken, I would have just went somewhere else where it wasn't taken. Like, I don't understand how you can come from where they came from and do what they did.
I think it was that white supremacy was legislature at one point. You know, it was an ideology that the majority of white people believed that, you know, white Europeans believed that they were better because they were white. There's a concept called white man's burden. Europeans, they would go out and colonize these indigenous people and their nations and all that stuff, and because it was their way of saying, oh, they're savages. They need they need some of this order. They need some of this governmental structure. They're just living off the land, singing kumbaya, hanging out. Yeah, sometimes
no way to live.
Yeah, and of course there were some inhumane things that happened, like, you know, human sacrifice, things like that, like that were part of some tribes and stuff like that. But definitely. It was the whole mindset in which white people settled into these places and overran them and overtook them was because of manifest destiny. But before that, it was the white man's burden, the concept.
Really quick, when you mentioned Indian, that word, even like they just showed up and was like, oh, I was trying to go to India. Oh, this isn't India. Well, you're Indian. So, and then that stuck like my whole childhood.
That's not how it stuck, but they
It's
didn't
been-
know they weren't
it's
in
been
India.
like-
They had never been to India.
It's been
so they
fu-
thought they were in India. They later found out that wasn't
Exactly.
India.
And they're like, wow, we're wrong. We shouldn't be calling them Indians. No, that never happened.
Yeah.
Today, they're still called Indians.
Yeah.
Guys, guys, the thing is that it's like a nickname that should have fallen off right away, but it's been like 500 years. It's like, you know, when you were a kid and they called you like some stupid name.
Twinkle toes.
Yeah, Twinkle Toes or whatever. And you're
I'm
like,
50.
bro, I'm a grown man now.
Ralph
You
came
can
up with
call
that
me
so fast. I think that happened to him.
Yeah. Just it's like that. It's sad, yo. It shows you how whitewashed our history is. That a whole race of people were called the wrong thing just because white people called them that.
Well, our history is written by the victors.
True.
So it's written from that point of view.
So why is it right now that all these things are starting to fall off?
Because of us. the
because of
millennials.
education.
Because of millennials.
And
We came in here
And
we're like,
episode 1. I mean, part 1.
we came in here and we're like, what's going on here? Other generations? What have you been doing?
Oh, that's so funny.
You're drunk. You messed this
We're
all
like,
up for
no,
everybody.
No. This is no way to live. This is all wrong.
I mean, if you think about it, there's key figures in recent American history that have been pushing things like
yeah,
this.
they pretty much set it up.
But if you think about it, I think we're the first generation as a whole. Of course, there's racist millennials for sure. There's racist millennials.
My cousin.
Exactly. But he told us a story earlier about his racist cousin.
I know.
But I think as a whole, generally, millennials are probably on the cusp of shutting a lot of it down. Like I say, 2 or 3 generations from now, in America, if we keep going the way we're going,
Shut it down.
that I think a lot of between how educated we are and how I don't want to say the apathy that we do have, but I think in some ways the apathy that millennials have can help certain situations like that. Like, I don't care that he's another race. Who cares? I think it helps us in that sense. And I think that may actually push things like this down.
Yeah. Well, you got to give also like you got to give the 70s their credit, man. Like they
No.
they-
I said there's key events that have happened, but those were the radicals.
Yeah.
That wasn't the majority.
Yeah, that's true.
For us, the majority is going to be who cares what his skin
Well, I'm
color
pretty sure
is.
hippies were like, "Who cares, man?"
Yeah.
So
And but just to piggyback on what you said, like everything you said, I find to be very true. And also, but one more thing though is that the representation of Black people as college professors, as deans, as legislators, in government politics and passing policies,
Or any other quote unquote minority, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true as well. Like Hispanics as well. Like a lot of.
I think you're a black supremacist.
I'm down. Sign me up. No, I'm kidding. That's they have a life expectancy of like 6 years. But as Latinos get more representation, as even homosexuals get more representation, it's easier to pass laws in their favor.
I feel like our generation is like overall trying to seek understanding. Like I feel like that's a key characteristic of our generation.
I concur.
It's probably why a lot of us are lost too, because we're trying to understand and no one knows the answers, and we can see that's the first thing that our generation sees, is that no one knows what they're talking about.
And I think the fact that nobody knows what they're talking about sort of opens eyes that, man, we're following a lot of stuff that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
The smart ones.
and
There's a lot of millennials that follow anything they hear on Facebook.
yeah, but that's why a lot of people call us a Generation Y.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not why, but that's like a little pun that people always
Yeah.
pull out, like because we
It is one of the reasons why. There's Generation Y, the letter, but there's also Generation Y spelled out the
WHY. Yeah, because we want to know, like we want to go deeper.
What I believe is that we're starting to be the highest concentration. So we're starting to have the highest concentration of independent thinking within any of the American generations thus far. It looks like because we're starting to have a healthy distrust of the media, because we look back at the years, right? And we look back at every generation, every era in the U.S., and a lot of times the media was pushing narratives that later on were seen as false. And so a lot of us, we look at what the media is telling us now, and we're like, wait, what are we gonna know that is false in the future? I think it kind of I think that plays a big role into it.
We also have different media sources giving the same information and in such a starkly different way.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's so clearly different that it forces you to have a question mark, and it forces you to ask, okay, wait, why are these so different? What's the truth here? And then you do your own research, and I think that's where, in that area, is where effective change or movements and all of that are birthed from that, I think.
We have diverse friends, and we have access to technology that other generations might not be bothering with now or didn't have in the past. And someone who's older might stick to the station that they prefer, right, as a news source. And so that's all they hear. They don't hear the other types. They don't go and read some article from some other place that has an opposite point of view.
I never even thought of that as a factor.
Yeah.
Like the older generation, the wealth of knowledge that we have now, they didn't have access to that.
Yeah.
We have access to a lot more perspectives.
Yeah. Which in a way it's almost like, I don't want to say you can't blame them, but at the same time,
You could empathize with the situation.
Yeah, you have to empathize a little bit because they were taught that from childhood.
If you're being taught that from childhood, and then all of your friends are being taught that, and then the news and
Everything's reinforcing it.
In school, you have the fairy tale of our history being pushed on, being taught to you. I mean, if that's all you have, then I get it, and I just now had that realization.
If that's how people want to see things, then that's how people are going to see things. And if they don't up their mind, then what are you going to do? The part about it that sucks is that a lot of them are the one that have power over you, even if it's just your boss
Not
at
for
work.
long. They'll die soon.
This is the thing. You have to get
So will you,
opinions.
Kyle. Life
Wow.
is short.
I was imagining myself dying. But the thing is that you really have to go out of your way and find opinions from people and mingle with different ideologies.
It's a beautiful thing.
The thing is that, look, I'm not libertarian at all, but I'll sit down and I'll sit down and talk to somebody who's libertarian. I've sit down and talked to people who are communist sympathizers, socialist sympathizers. I've talked to people who are venture capitalists. I've talked to people. I literally have tried to go out of my way and sit down and speak with people who think differently than me and find out why, because I believe that the truth is usually somewhere in the middle, like between the conservative approach and the liberal approach, depending on any matter, right? The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. You know, there's conservative concepts that should be applied and liberal concepts that should be applied as well. You know, and that's how I see it. That's why I have to diversify the way I take in the news and I take in just ideologies and opinions of people.
Everything's gray, man. I always say that. It's all gray.
Also, the fact that you're able to sit down with people and they're willing to share their perspective. I feel like the generations before us were very, like, you talk about politics, that's like very taboo. Like, I remember I was like in 6th grade, I asked my teacher who she was voting for, and she got so offended and angry that I even asked her. That's not something you talk about. That's not something you
like
you
a
ask
woman's
someone.
weight.
Sure.
But I feel like a lot of
some people take it in the same.
I got you.
Respect.
I feel like our generation is a lot more open to sharing perspective and
everything else.
and listening.
Yeah, and
Having
I
a
recognize to a
conversation.
fault. Yes, they share too much a lot of times.
Yeah.
I don't just mean about important things, about extremely non-important things as well that no one needs to know, or inappropriate things.
Racism starts with the mentality that we are brought upon with on our own influences and from one another. With those experiences throughout our lives is how we end up naturally and unintentionally sometimes judging people by looks and maybe even being racist. Although we don't necessarily feel that way towards any kind of person, scenarios can define how we feel towards someone from the same scenarios presented to ourselves from past experiences of other people and ourselves. Unfortunately, stereotypes come to play here, and that's why things get messy.
The N-word.
I was just gonna try to do a little segue to that. Yeah.
Go ahead. Give us a segue. Give us
Speaking of the N-word,
Look who just knocked on the door. It's the N-word.
All right, that's
speak
our
of the
segue.
devil.
Hey there. Let's talk about you. And
Do you know what you're gonna say about it?
I was just gonna say, well, our
Okay, I know what I want to say about it. Like right off the bat,
Go ahead.
I think 2 things about the N-word, and they're like,
Wait, what is the N-word?
we
Nova
you were gonna
Scotia.
say it?
Nova Scotia.
I don't care. I'm not gonna say it though.
Nancy.
No, but you can't just say it. Say
Everyone
it in
knows
song
what the
style.
N-word is. It
Just
doesn't
say it
matter.
in style.
Nigga.
Like, look at you.
No, that's not
now
the
look
N-word.
at us.
Oh, nigger.
Yes, that's the N-word.
Nigger.
No, both.
But
are.
we got to talk about both.
Of course we do. But
Okay,
let me,
go ahead.
Yeah, but
that's
the
where I'm
word
going. Give me a
Okay,
second.
go ahead.
the
I'm
R.
sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, this is what I like about the N-word. I like that the N-word was something that was to put someone down, and those people took it and turned it around and began to call each other that in protest. I don't know if it was originally in protest, but I like that they took the word away from the people who
Well, was
originally
naturally
created
set up
it.
to oppress them.
Now it's bad for those people to say it, and they can call it each other. I think that's
That's pretty badass.
That's
kind of
called the
bait and
okey-doke.
switch.
The okey doke.
The okey doke.
They got finessed.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't want to come off as ignorant or that I don't
The
understand.
thing is that black people were coming down on a full fast break, and they just hit the white man with the Euro step, and then finished it and won.
Okay, yeah, sure. I like punk stuff, and that's very subversive, very punk. It's like, oh, that's what you think.
That's
what
metal
you,
AF.
Yeah, they're like, that's what you think we are. Okay, then that's what we are, and they call each other that. And now you're not allowed to say it anymore, and you're the originator of the word. I think that's really great. But at the same time, at the same moment, it's kind of crazy how I can split like this. I think it's a terrible word, and I don't think anyone should use it. I think it should be only in ink in the history books, and that you shouldn't be calling each other that just because it brings up memories or tension that doesn't need to exist anymore, and it reminds people over and over again about something like that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
If you have a fresh, innocent kid that hears that word and doesn't know the weight of it and is already using it when he's 5, which I've seen and heard at the schools that I've subbed at, and he has no idea what the history is and how heavy that word is, it's not right. He shouldn't be using that word because he doesn't understand, and he didn't go through any of it. I think the only people who should be able to use it are people who've been called that in actual hate. honestly,
Well-
myself. But anyways, that's my opinion on it as a whole.
I have been called that once. Like,
And you hate using it.
yeah, I mean, oh wait, I've been called that many, many, many times, but I've been called that in hate, like,
With vitriol.
yeah, once ever. And
Word of the
I
day.
was like, oh, how could he really said that word to me? It was like, wow, I didn't.
Hard R.
Hard R.
Do you care to share the story?
Nigger.
Yeah, share the story.
All right, I'll share the story. All right, so I
It
was.
was your father. I'm just kidding.
He ordered coffee. He's like, you want some sugar, nigga?
No, so I was in band. I played trombone, and
Womp womp.
That was so cool.
I was a total badass in the trombone section. And the way that that sentence, the way that
Never been said. Congratulations.
Hashtag tromboned.
Hashtag trombone heartthrob.
hashtag tromboner. All right. Anyway,
Cigarette.
we didn't have hashtags back then. This was in middle school, way before hashtags. Yeah, that's a line. Anyone? Okay, cut that out. And we had the way that you were set up in your section was basically on how good you were. So if you were first chair, then you're the best, right? And me and this guy would go back and forth between first and second chair. And the way that you would do it is by challenging them to a solo, and they had to play the same solo, and then our band director would determine whoever sounded better. Anyway, we would do that back and forth all the time. We kind of hated each other, and we always had to sit next to each other. Whatever. I beat him this time, and I don't remember specifically how it got to this word, but he called me it out of anger because he lost. And I think he...
Like a Tourette's thing? Like,
No, like in response to
like, blah, 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 you cheated, nigger. And I was just like, what? What did you call? Like, I didn't even know how to react.
Also,
really.
how do you
So
cheat
did
on a
you-
trombone?
So did you have a response?
No, I don't remember specifically having one ready for him. I just remember being pissed. Like, I was really mad. But anyway, I don't want to be called that. I don't want to be called it with an A. I don't want to be called it with an ER. Anytime someone has called me that, I typically
Any derogatory term. Really?
will correct them or just tell them, like, hey, I don't please, I don't want to be called that. I don't associate with that word. So yeah.
good. I think that's better than option A that I said.
Using it like as a kind of like a protest.
A
Yeah,
switcheroo.
I don't think anyone now uses it as a protest.
No,
But
no,
for
no.
sure, when it came about, black people calling each other that's what it was for
People
sure.
either use it now as like just another word.
Yeah, now it's just another word, but
Or it's used facetiously. It's used like
exactly
as a joke.
yeah, like Chappelle.
My whole thing on it was that for a long, long time, I used it recreationally.
Wait, marijuana or
No, the N-word.
Okay.
I do not use marijuana ever.
That
Over
shirt
time,
says otherwise.
over time,
You do look like a pothead right now. Just kidding.
all right.
They can't see you, so
You look like a trombone player.
Thank you.
But all right. So basically, the way I feel about that word is that for a long time I did use it recreationally, and I felt that, I didn't see it as a big deal as long as white people didn't say it, because I felt that through the historical context of it, it's offensive, and I feel like living in Miami though, if you're Latino but you're light skinned, you can get away with it honestly a lot, but with a lot
tons
of
of
people.
races. Asians say it.
Yeah, everybody says it, and it doesn't have to be.
If you're in that culture, if you're
Yeah.
in hood or ghetto, you can say it. Like I
Yeah,
mean, white
basically.
people who live in that.
Yeah, and there's people with 2-car garages that are saying it.
No,
And,
that's too much.
I know. Right?
They're,
At
they're
one
not,
garage, yes.
They're not
two-
living the life where you're allowed to say something.
If you have a pool in your backyard and a garage and a driveway, no.
No.
If you can park two cars on your property and not on the grass, you can't say it. But no, I'm kidding. But the thing is that before you oppress anyone, you have to dehumanize them, right? We see it in the Holocaust. We see it in certain things. And
Did you say dehumanize them?
dehumanize them. Yes. So I saw that I started to see it as a dehumanizing way. The same thing that they would call them. They would use the word coon to compare them to a raccoon animal.
Yeah.
To a porch monkey. Same thing as
Pickaninny,
all that.
mammy.
Exactly. All those racial slurs were meant to dehumanize, including the N-word.
Of course.
Right. So because of the historical context of it, me personally, I sometimes it'll slip out, honestly, but I try very hard not to use it. I don't really go around correcting everybody and all that stuff. I personally don't do that. But and I understand if some people aren't there yet. But I think that anyone who does look at the history of it, like actually does a real responsible study into the history of the word and why it was used and the context of it and all that stuff. Like there's a reason why white people don't call each other honkies and all that stuff. And other people don't use racial slurs to identify themselves or to use it recreationally with other people of the same race. So I think it's not a good thing. I think that over time it should go away. In my opinion, it's better for the race.
Just to clarify, I don't go around like correcting people either. I don't like if I hear someone just using it, I'm like, hey, you stop that. I don't really do that. The only time
don't you write Lil Wayne every day on an email?
No, and
don't you compose trombone music?
And let it go, bro. Let it go. The only time I will say something is if they call me that.
Yeah, it's directed at you.
Right.
It's not my name.
Yeah, really quick, just for fun. Do you know where honky comes from?
The Jeffersons?
No. This is the story I've been told by much older people, that when white people would go around to get black prostitutes, they wouldn't get out of their car because they didn't want to be seen doing, first of all, getting a prostitute. Second of all, a black prostitute. Yeah. So they would just honk, and the black girls would call them honkies, and it just stuck. And yeah. Wow. I thought it was interesting.
Also, I think the argument to say that, it's just a word, it's just a word, don't let it have any weight. I think if you're fighting more for your use and what you care about, like of the word, just the ability to use the word more than you care about how it's affecting people, then I think you're just have like a very selfish, unempathetic view.
Agreed. And if words don't carry weight, what's the point of words? Like, you're just blabbering on. If the things that you're saying don't have a lot of meaning to it, then you're just not really saying anything.
The thing is that argument falls on itself. It's a fallacy because
which argument?
I'm not saying your argument, but saying that it's just a word. Because if I tell you, hey, let's hang out today, and then I really meant tomorrow, but I just don't.
That's
tell
what
you
I mean.
That.
Yeah,
and then that would cause chaos.
No one would ever understand what anyone's ever saying if words didn't have weight.
Exactly. Like that would cause chaos. It would be a stupid way to conduct anything effectively.
Okay. So I think, we all agree on that one.
It's so boring.
Ashley.
Do you have something?
Yeah, but it's not about that word.
It doesn't have to be. We're done with that word.
Okay.
I hope we are, as a generation.
Basically, when you all say that I'm Mexican, I really hate that.
Why?
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm actually. I know you guys do it in a humorous stance, and I don't take offense to it, but I do and I don't. I don't because I understand you guys are my friends and I know you care about me and you don't mean it in a derogatory term. But when people generalize or group people together, like I said earlier about if you live in the ghetto, then you're this type of person. When there's generalizations, I definitely cannot. I can't stand that, especially when it's done out of ignorance or just because you say something meaning as a joke, or people will use the N-word, meaning it as a joke, but in actuality, they're not aware of what they're saying or the weight of it, like we were saying. So,
but does Mexican carry a weight for you or something?
You're just saying that's the epitome of all Latinas or Hispanic.
Yeah, but
or whatever.
you join in on that. That's why.
You're not.
That's why we
like
think
people
it's okay.
saying, okay,
Where are you from, then?
Some people say like people refer to Black individuals, sometimes they'll say, oh, those African Americans, when in actuality, they may not be African American. They may be Jamaican. They may be Dominican. They may be Nicaraguan. They may be whatever.
It comes down to people wanting to be known. And when you misidentify somebody, they don't feel known and they feel like attacked. You know what I'm saying?
I never really saw too much racism growing up. One of my best friends growing up was an African American, and I went to a school that was all mixed. I live in Miami, which is the melting pot, and you just didn't see it as much. And you just grew up in a community where it didn't exist, at least on the surface level. I've only really encountered racism one time. I was in middle school, and I was I was part of a church event. It was like a scavenger hunt, but it was in the local neighborhood right next to the church. And while doing the scavenger hunt, I was with my friend who is African American, and we came to, I guess, a neighbor's backyard, and there were two gentlemen out in the yard, and one was an older white man and I guess his son. And I remember the older white gentleman just started yelling, almost in fear, in the direction of my African American friend, and his son came over and said, "Get away from that man," and all that stuff. And I remember just like so much anger and frustration, and I'm sure we kind of scared him, like running up on the yard and stuff. But as like we went back and we started to talk about it, my friend was explaining to me basically what was happening and some words that were said that I didn't even hear at the time. I guess I just didn't recognize the racism in the way that they said things, or I was so ignorant to the whole thing because I never had seen it before, didn't expect to see it then, and it just kind of brought a lot of it to light to me, and it was amazing to see that this does still exist in pockets of even this city.
When you encounter that, or if you've ever encountered that, do you guys ever do anything in response to that? Do you respond with your words? Do you respond with an action, or do you not do anything in actuality?
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, reword it
I'm not
so I
sure
can
how
use
to-
it for the podcast.
Okay, for example, where I work,
No, what he's saying is since
Make
we're
your
not including your
question clear.
story, phrase the
I'm
question.
going to
in a
start
way.
the
Okay.
question now, or a different story that will lead to a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where I work, sometimes I'm approached and asked, "Oh, where's the African American that works here? Or where's the black woman?" And I don't even respond to that. I'm like, "Oh, you mean so-and-so?" And I state that person's name. Is this the person you're talking about? Because you can call her or him by their name.
Well, they don't know it. A lot of people just use that because they're
Exactly.
describing and they don't know
that
what,
sort of
what else to
thing,
say.
when you generalize and you have no idea what you're talking about, I can't stand that. Do you guys ever encounter when people generalize, like, "Oh, that Mexican"? Well, that person's not really Mexican. That person is Puerto Rican. Like, what are you talking about? "Oh, yeah, no, it's all the same. It's all the same." It's not the same.
Yeah, that's just pure ignorance. Like,
When you encounter that, do you
you're
make a
what type of
correction?
Mexican are you? Do you speak Mexican? Like that's a thing that people say.
Yeah. I definitely identify with that because I've had it lately, the last year, I've really gotten into Black history, African history, systemic racism and things like that, and understanding all those things. And I identify myself as Afro-Latino. I try to definitely be informed about the Black plight in America, and I'll say things on Facebook and I'll say in our communities and things like that, and then people will say, "Oh, you're Dominican, you're not Black," or people will tell me, "Oh, you're not Black, man, you're Hispanic," and that really does bother me because then I have to go into it, and even then at times where people tell me, "No, you're still not Black," and that's ignorant. Because the thing is, of course, my grandfather is of African descent. I have Black features, not full. I do look Hispanic more than I look Black, but that doesn't mean that I am not allowed to identify with the Black plight or
They're trying to diminish your identity
exactly
and your ability to speak on those subjects.
And that's highly ignorant, and I think Kyle does too, right? You think sometimes you've had that issue where people say, "Oh, you're not Black."
All the time. That it happened growing up. It still happens today. And because people think Black is automatically synonymous with African American, and yes, you can't be African American and not be Black, but you can be Black and not be African American.
Correct,
that people don't understand that, and it's frustrating because if this were X amount of years ago, I would have been a slave just like the next African American. I'm Black. I would have been a slave. Why, if you are Black and you need to label yourself as African American, but if you're white, you're not asked to label yourself as German American or Russian American or Dutch American or whatever, Scottish American. No one says that. If you're white, you can just say I'm American. But if you're Black, you're expected to say African American. You can't just say American.
Now, but there's all kinds of history of race problems with Italians and Irish here in America. That's never really brought up because it came and died very quickly, but that's why.
I still don't understand. I'm sorry.
Well, first of all, lots of white people at this point are mutt white people.
Yeah.
I'm not just German. I'm French, German.
Yeah, but
Spaniard.
African Americans can have Zimbabwe, Nigeria, whatever.
Of course,
that doesn't
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
Oh, Africa. That's it. Africa.
I don't know. I'm just telling you why I think it's not a fact that
Yeah.
that
The thing
white
is that-
people that first of all the mutt thing, and second of all that was a problem at the time. All the Irish were coming over here. They were discriminated against, and people didn't like them, and they had their own gangs and all that kind of stuff.
I think it boils down to people as a whole not wanting to recognize the differences in that entity of people. They don't want to recognize the uniqueness and diversity of that group of people, because by doing that, you might acknowledge the, like if I say, okay, where are you really from? What are your descendants? Whatever. Then it would show that I care about your lineage. When in actuality, with those group of people, I just feel like this nation just wants to put them in a box. Boom, that's it. They're put in a box.
Yeah.
Without actually trying to understand their culture, trying to understand, where they come from. So I think that's where that comes from.
Well, that and that the creators of those boxes may very well have been racist people, and like, whatever, you're white, it's fine. You all are white.
I think
but Africans and all these other people need their other boxes.
I think it's a matter of people trying to be politically correct and culturally sensitive, because black people weren't always called African American. Before it was colored and blacks, and
They needed to find something.
yeah, they wanted to find a way that they could refer to the people without offending them.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. I've had those frustrating conversations where somebody's like, "Where are you from?" And I'll just say like, "Oh, I'm American." Yeah, but where are you really from, or whatever? But and that's fine. And I'll say my mom's from Cuba, my dad's from Panama, whatever, and I'm black. And then if I ask the same question to them, they'll just say, "Oh, I'm American," and that answer is acceptable for them because they're white. They can just say I'm American. They don't need to go into their whole.
I think
but
that's something that's eventually going to
Dissipate.
go towards a level ground.
Yeah.
Like I think in the fact that we keep searching for terms that are more sensitive, we are trying to find a way to talk about people in a way that doesn't offend people. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Is that good?
I think it's that people need to know the difference between nationality and race. Like race is a little. It gets a little complicated. I think it's pretty easy to pick up. I think that you understand there's four indigenous groups, and fifth is other. But and then it just depends on which bloodlines you come from, and that's it. Some people want to put Latino in it and throw in nationalities as well, because African American is not a nationality.
Yeah, but there's race,
Black.
ethnicity, nationality. It's like, what are you asking me?
Yeah,
What do you
exactly.
mean?
Ethnicity, like Latino is an ethnicity, but not a race. So it's just confusing. It just confuses people for some reason. I think it's just people not understanding the difference between nationality, race, and ethnicity.
Well, back to something Ashley said a long time ago. You're saying that there's four indigenous races. There's four indigenous races, but no matter whether you're a religious or an evolutionist or whatever, there's not. There was a one person first at some point, and all this stuff came about later. Does that make sense? So I don't know. I'm still with her on that thing. I don't think.
The thing is that okay.
You're voting for. Never mind.
Ashley Matthews,
He said, I'm with
2016.
her. That's
sorry.
like the slogan.
Oh my God, no!
But this is the problem that I have with that. The thing is like we started to, I want to get into it a little bit more because it's a thing. So there are details.
It's a thing.
No, there are details about you that are important to you, right? It shouldn't be in a way that I have to cancel it out and make it all the same for it just because it's more comfortable for me. Like you'd rather be your height than my height, right? That difference is an important difference to you, right?
Exactly.
Correct. Yeah. That's a difference that's important to you. It shouldn't be that I have to disregard something about you. What's wrong? If I have to disregard something about you for it to all be equal, then what's the problem? Like then I'm insinuating that there's a problem with your race.
No,
not at all. That's not what we're saying. Unfortunately, we cannot start from a clean slate. Humankind cannot start from a clean slate bare where we can create history henceforth. We cannot do that. So right now, all that we can do is acknowledge our differences, praise each other, but what's not being spoken about as frequently as our differences is the fact that we are all from the same race, the human race. I feel like people do not acknowledge that to the degree that they need to acknowledge that. Everyone wants to stand up with their posters. Everyone wants to shout out. Everyone wants to picket. Everyone wants to argue and disagree or try to agree about so-and-so and who these people are and what these people do and everything like that without realizing that we are all human.
Yeah, but
we are all people.
By using that argument, you're saying let's start from a clean slate, and you just said that we couldn't.
I'm saying we can't, so we need to acknowledge our differences, but no other group should be praised higher than another.
Correct. No, and I could correct, but you said we have to acknowledge the differences. If we say we're all the same race, and then we're not acknowledging the differences.
Okay, I acknowledge you're Dominican. I'm not a Dominican. There are great things about your culture or your people or whatever that I can't disagree with. We all have our differences, but we can all learn from each other. So let me give a little analogy. Let's say we're out in the wilderness, right? And we need to make a fire, and we need to get shelter, and we need to find food, and it's about to rain. Okay? You may have the ability to start a fire. I don't. Let's say I can't do that, but I can go find wood so we can build a shelter for ourselves, right? That's something I can do. I acknowledge that you can do that, and that is wonderful about your aspect of your being. But in reality, we are all in the same situation together, if that makes any sense. So there are things about every single culture that are beneficial or advantageous or wonderful to praise about, or maybe not. There are things that we can learn from each other and grow with each other alongside each other, if that makes any sense. So I feel like there are many times when people focus too much on what
racial differences
varies us rather than realizing that we all
celebrating
share
that our
the same
varieties can help each other.
Yeah, and unite us for the same outcome.
Yes, the thing is that you can do that and still recognize the differences in race.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure if I'm actually
I understand, but the thing is that when you guys say, oh, we're all just one race, the human race, I understand what you guys mean, that we are of course the human race and all that stuff. Almost every person of color that I've met has had this happen to them, where someone's like, oh, I don't see you as black.
I'm colorblind.
Yeah, that's a racist thing to say, because that's saying that the fact that your racial features are such a problem that I have to act like it's not even there, that it's like mine.
There are people though that share that mentality but don't see it as a problem. Like you're pointing it. There are people that do. There are people that do point it out as a problem, like you just said. But there are people that share the whole colorblind mentality that don't see race as a problem. In actuality,
but it is a problem. And to say you're colorblind, like you're.
Yeah, but what's so bad about my race that you have to remove it from the equation?
There's nothing wrong about your race.
I understand that. I'm not saying that you're saying that, but okay,
I think that person would say the same thing to a Haitian, to an Australian, to a Russian.
No, but that is also insensitive, and that's also demeaning, because it's implying that there's some, like, all right, if I have to act like something is not there for me to like you, like if you,
but that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, it's saying that that I have to not bring in your race into the equation for me to see you properly, or for
I think it's personally. If I were to say something like that, I have never said that.
Maybe you don't mean that, but that's what the literal meaning would imply.
The complete opposite is other people see your color and don't like you. I don't see your color. I see you for your personality and who you are, and that's why I like you.
Wait. Well, once again, all right, color and race and all that stuff is different, because skin color can vary within races and all that stuff. So what I'm saying is that there should be, in whatever race you're from, there is pride, and there is great accomplishments and great contributions to the world and society of whichever race you are from, and you should take pride in that.
But some people see that as a contribution to humanity other than a contribution to that race.
No, and I understand that. I understand that. That's what I mean. I'm talking about people's contributions to humanity. Like if I see someone who's Asian, right? They might have positive stereotypes, or they might have they come from a lineage of people who have contributed to society in certain ways. And if that person wants to talk about that and bring that up and take pride in that, that's an awesome factor about themselves. you know. And for me to say that, I am colorblind and I am like I'm negating just the great like the great accomplishments, and I feel like I'm negating the great legacy and heritage that person has.
It's like,
That's how I feel.
oh, don't worry, man. I don't see you as Asian.
Yeah.
As if there's a stigma attached to it.
Exactly. That's how I see
I
it.
get
Yeah.
both. I understand. I get both aspects of it.
I guess we may have to agree to disagree, but
yeah,
I
that's
just
what it's gonna have to be. I guess.
yeah. Feel free
And
to
I'm
cut to
gray
that
as
short.
usual.
But you have to allow race to be part of the equation and just allow.
I've already said how I would allow race to be part of the equation, though.
How?
In history.
Medical and history. Medical now and always, and history.
Okay. All right.
Can you follow that rhetoric and support Black lives? I'm not talking about you specifically, someone in general. Can you follow that rhetoric and still support Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Because
There are people that do follow the Black Lives Matter movement, and they don't see it solely, as we said in the beginning, solely as a movement for only Black lives, but as a movement for the welfare of mankind as a whole. Like you were saying earlier, Gabriel, the civil rights activist movement that occurred opened up a door for so many different type of people, not only for men or different races, but for women as well. So yeah, I really do believe that you can stand alongside the Black Lives Matter movement, but also recognize the benefit of that movement and not what it does only for one entity of people, but for all entities.
Yeah. The Black Lives Matter movement is so important to Black people because it's finally a place where Black people can unite and can empower themselves and can bring dignity back to being Black. And
Why are people so scared of that?
Yes, I know. And the thing is that like this girl, I don't even want her to say her name, but she's like on the Blaze. Let's just call her TL or whatever. She's a very like popular conservative pundit. Yeah, and she said, she tweeted out that I'm paraphrasing, but she said that, look at the new KKK. It's called the Black Lives Matter movement. And I was very, very offended at her, and a lot of people were, and she actually took it down. She never apologized for it, to my knowledge. But it's this whole thing where the conservative media, and there are many good things that come from the conservative media, but they're painting one people with the same brush, and then telling that same group of people not to do it to cops and not to do it to other people. And it's very disturbing because the thing is that Black people need Black Lives Matter. Black people need groups for them, by them, that empower them. Because historically speaking, like as a dark person, if you grew up in an American education, well, as you flip through the history books, you probably think that people like you never did anything to further society. The thing is that while the whole Industrial Revolution was happening, and all these white people were enjoying their freedom, and and inventing cotton gins and cars and all these manufacturing machines and everything, Black people were enslaved. I mean, you look at it from that end. You've been ripped of your dignity. You've been taught that, like Malcolm X once said, he's like, who told you that there was something wrong with your hair? And he told you who was wrong with your lips, or what was wrong with the color of your skin, what was wrong with your hair. Who told you that there was something wrong with this? And a lot of times it's been shown that like what is Black is second class. It's been subtly indoctrinated into you. Like a big butt was a weird thing until a white girl has it, until a Latina girl has it. But it's like, it's only cool when they have it. Big lips is only cool when white people have it. You get me? Like it's subtly indoctrinated into you. Yeah.
one thing I hope about that movement is that it dies when it needs to. Some stuff hangs around too long. Sometimes when someone has received the justice they need, they still hold on to the struggle because people like that feeling. And I hope that if everything they're pushing for comes around, that it's dropped and we can get to quote unquote the all lives matter part that everyone's trying to get to, not the movement or the hashtag.
Well, if history has been any proof to us, it won't stop. It won't end. Because
it's never happened.
The need for justice will always be outstanding from what we can meet. From the beginning of time, there have always been a group of people that have tried to suppress another group. So no matter what, even if it dwindles a little bit, it's going to start right back up because we don't live in a perfect society. We don't live in a utopia. We can make changes and we can broaden the awareness of humanity, but no one is ever going to create the society in totality that we strive for. And I know that sounds super like pessimistic and not like happy-go-lucky, but you can educate yourself and you can push and push and push and you can strive and you can make gradual changes, but there's always going to be opposition. And unless your opposition has a conscience, nothing's ever going to change.
I totally agree with that. And I think, to make some kind of random prediction for no reason for the sake of this podcast, I think that if racism ever does go away, it's only going to morph into classism. Back to what you said about greed is ultimately what's really happening here.
That's very, very true.
I think, I mean, we by wearing
Hunger
most...
Games?
That's a little extreme, but it could. Who knows? We could digress, but I mean, digress isn't the word, is it?
Just keep going.
We could decompose, but
Decompose.
yeah,
We could trombone.
Regress.
Let it go, bro. Let it go.
regress. But even the clothes that we're wearing right now are on the backs of poorer people from other places.
True.
You know, so even if we get over the race thing, now it's but we have more than you and you have less, and we can pay you to do X, Y, and Z. And anyways, I think that's a lot of what it's going to turn into at some point, even if racism is defeated, which in one way or the other it won't be. But yeah,
Another thing that I don't know if it can be called a movement or whatever, but something that I just think is really cool now that I'm seeing happen a lot is a lot of Black women are going like their hair, they're going natural. Like they're not perming their hair, they're not like putting weaves in it. They're just letting their hair grow out of their head the way it naturally does.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. Like
and
I
a
love
money saving thing.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's bad if you do that. I'm not saying it's bad if you perm your hair, if you put weave in your hair or whatever. Like, do whatever you want. I just think that it's beautiful how something that was once seen as like this, like it's. I remember growing up, and if you were a Black woman or a Black girl rather, and you didn't have, if your hair wasn't straight, if your hair was quote unquote nappy, if you had a fro or anything, you were made fun of, you were ridiculed by Black people. So I think that's a beautiful thing now, how it's seen as something beautiful, and women are doing it, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to Black empowerment, man, and I think it's I definitely agree with you, man. It's a beautiful thing. I hope that people begin to take pride in their ancestry and in the accomplishments of their ancestors, their physical features, and all that stuff. Because I mean, if you look at black culture, it's beautiful, you know. Like some of the best entertainers are Black. Some of the best athletes we've ever seen. Some of the most athletic marvels are Black. And I'm not to put down any other race or whatever, because every race has their people or their accomplishments and all that stuff. But there's definitely, like, Black people have many things to be proud of, you know. And it's good that we're going out of our way to enrich our own communities, enrich our own people, and empower them. Let them know that you know, there's nothing naturally wrong with the way they look, and you know, and they can accomplish great things just like their ancestors or predecessors.
Let's end part one with recommendations.
My recommendation is the Black Power Mixtape. It's on Netflix. It's a documentary made by Swedish filmmakers. You're going to have to read a few subtitles here and there, but there is commentary.
AKA the entire film.
No, there is commentary from known folk. It's great. It'll change your mindset, and if it doesn't, watch it again.
My recommendation is a movie that I saw recently. It's called Birth of a Nation. I hadn't really seen a lot of trailers for it or anything, but I was curious and I saw it, and I was weeping in the theater. Like, I don't do that for many movies, but this movie tore my heart out of my chest and just ripped it apart watching it. It really, really, really impacted me. Like, as I was driving home, I was like, if I see a white person on the sidewalk, I will probably mow them over with my car. I'm just kidding. I didn't see that. You can cut that out. But it's a really, really, really good movie.
I mean, I only cry in movies where a guy, where his wife leaves a man because he's broke.
Tyler Perry?
No. No, Pursuit of Happiness.
Will Smith.
Okay, but Will Smith doesn't count because I cry in all his movies. I Am Legend.
So good, man.
No,
Like-
but I mean, it's a real thing. Like, this is like you getting left because you're broke. That's serious. Like, it's not a laughing matter. I only cry.
He's like kind of smirking when he says, "I don't know."
I cry when I see the defeat in the man's face. You know, and also the other movie,
feet in the man's-
defeat.
The defeat.
I thought you meant like feet.
I heard
That's
the
when
feet
I cry.
in the man's
Gabriel's
face.
humor, man.
Sorry,
I
Gabe.
love it.
But I mean, what I recommend is
Wow, you're not recommending The Pursuit of Happiness
no.
after all that?
That's what I thought.
What I recommend is I don't know if any of you have ever had like ice cream and then thrown like a muffin or like a cookie in it.
I like where you're going with this.
But like but I mean like a high concentration of said other element and kind of mushed it together where it's like it's a different consistency. Make sure it's
Yeah.
like a different
I put a cake in a bowl and pour milk in it sometimes.
no,
Like
no, no.
all
what
over
that's-
it.
That's
just mush.
You do
Milk.
that? No. Hey, we can't be friends. But but what I mean is that just ice cream and then like a muffin, like a piece of a muffin, like I mean a high concentration of muffin. It should be like at least 30% muffin in there,
Okay.
and it is amazing.
Did you say 30%?
Yeah, 30% muffin.
That's a high concentration.
high concentration of muffin.
in comparison to ice cream,
I said at least. I'm being liberal here.
no, I'm saying in comparison to ice cream, that's a high concentration of
You're
muffin.
being conservative.
Some people are.
I would like a
lightweights.
muffin stuffed with ice cream, deep fried.
Insert
Ralph.
heavy panting from Gabriel.
Can you imagine
That's a
that?
soundbite.
It has a crunch on the outside and like a hot muffin with. It's just housing icy goodness on the inside.
All right.
Hey, don't let people
guys,
steal your idea, man. Take
Yeah.
it. Open your store like Muffin Tops from Elaine and Seinfeld.
Can you please stop talking about ice cream and like that? So I'm gonna have to smoke a
So
cigarette.
what am I gonna put for your recommendation? Ice cream and muffin.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my recommendation is you break out the Nesquik because you're about to watch some Luke Cage. That's it.
That's it. Luke Cage.
Luke Cage and Nesquik.
Where
yeah.
do you find it?
Netflix.
Is there a correlation
At
between
the
the
Nesquik
Nesquik
aisle?
and Luke Cage?
I mean, Nesquik is good and Luke Cage is good. So yeah.
There you go.
My recommendation is going to be a book by another one of my favorite
Whack.
stuff of all time.
Oh my god.
His name is Saul Williams, and he wrote a book. Well, he wrote lots of books. I guess I have to pick one, huh? I would pick Said the Shotgun to the Head. It's a book of poetry, and it's awesome. And I think he aligns a lot with certain things. I think like one of his quotes is, "We cannot continually barricade ourselves under some falsified idea of race because our idea of blackness and race is simply reactionary. Africans didn't walk around Africa being black and proud. They walked around proud." And he has incredible lines and quotes like that in his poetry, and he's awesome. So Saul Williams, Said the Shotgun to the Head. Okay, listen, racism is a huge topic, and we recorded this for 3 hours, but didn't think anyone wanted a 3-hour podcast, so we split it up. This is the end of part 1, and part 2 will be out shortly. Thanks for listening.